Hey, how's it going, guys? Paris21 here, and back again after quite some time now to bring you guys a new episode of Meta Talk. Now, just a little bit quick reminder for all you viewers out there, Meta Talk is a series where I essentially go over relevant or important decks coming out of recent sets in Vanguard. In this case, for this episode, for set 15, and I kind of just do my own little brief analysis based on my three categories, which I always define as for a competitive deck in Vanguard, which is pressure, advantage, consistency. So usually for these meta talks, I always have, of course, my usual special guests and such, and of course, considering that, as you see here, for this episode, we're doing Silver Thorns, an updated Silver Thorns, particularly for Venus, as a newly introduced boss unit for the deck. Thought to go ahead and bring in my special guest, of course.
I am not dead. Whoever keeps on saying that I'm dead on the internet is stupid. I am still alive. I just have other shit to deal with.
Warlike in 36, guys.
Hi, guys.
So, of course, Warlike has been playing Pale Moon for quite a while, and yeah, so before we actually get started with the ratings and everything, overall, what are your, so I think the main thing that we're going to talk about is, you know, what are your first impressions, you know, coming from, well, original Pale Moon, but talk about Silver Thorns in general, you know, when they first came out in set 12 with Reverse, what kind of impressions did you kind of get with the transition going from Luquier Reverse to now a more focused Venus build?
It's, like, that's the key word right there, is just focus. I mean, the set 12 Silver Thorn deck, it definitely had the right setup of the engine with Irina and just being able to slowly manipulate the soul into a nice fine craft. The problem, though, is that Reverse Luquier just really didn't do very much by herself. I mean, it clogged the field up when you had to lock something, and whatever you call it. I mean, it's nice to get the 5k boost, but it just really didn't do much. So when it transitioned from Irina into Venus, Venus just brought a lot to the table. Like, it definitely gave it that punch that the Silver Thorns needed, without a doubt.
Most definitely. I really like Venus a lot, and it kind of, you know, Venus in combination with some other few additional support cards definitely sparked a little bit more of my interest with Silver Thorns. But we're going to go a little bit more in that in detail. So, yeah, definitely first impressions, I think it's definitely a great improvement. And you know, Venus, along with a few other support cards, like I said, it definitely addressed a few slight issues that the Silver Thorns had. But it was nice, good fine-tuning that it finally gets to kind of make it, well, definitely easily one of the best decks. I mean, it's definitely been showing up in the tournament. So, yeah. Silver Thorns pretty good. So yeah, now starting off with the first category, pressure. How well does this deck pressure your opponent? And of course, we're going to be giving it ratings based out of 5. So we're like, since this is your deck, I'm going to go ahead and let you kick things off for pressure.
Pressure is definitely up there, without a doubt. I mean, it's definitely better than how it was before, but at the same time, it's using some of the old school set 12 cards, without a doubt, like Marishika and Anna, without a doubt. Those two have definitely been like the big pressure cards of the deck. There have always been other cards as well, like for example, I threw in the Break Right Ava just so I could add more, you know, setup for the pressure and dealing with, like, you know, 5 really strong attacks to work with. And really, like, the reason why these two are just pressure is because when Zelma came out, honestly,
that was like the missing link.
That is definitely the missing link.
Zelma, I think I like Zelma so much.
Purple trap pieces made for Silver Thorns just makes the deck pop. And it's just a huge pop, because if you let one of those two hit, then you're guaranteed another attack, without a doubt.
It's like pull it out. It's like you attack with it. Well, obviously you're not going to have a grade 3 or the grade 2 as a Vanguard, but it's just...
Or at least not. So there you go.
Yeah, so you have like Zelma and Soul, you have Marishika or Anna, which works.
Yeah.
So obviously attack. And then it allows you just to essentially reset the column. It's the same plays that you essentially did with like set 3 with Purple Trapezis and like Alice
Midnight
and
Bunny
such.
And Alice, yeah.
So, yeah, but it's Silver Thorn.
Yeah, that's true. But the pressure definitely helps out with Anna and Marishika. More so Anna, in my opinion, because of the fact that it's a 7k booster that can utilize the effect. And the fact that, I mean, it's really just a matter of having either Irina or Emile to actually get it into the soul and out onto the field as fast as possible.
Plus, Anna essentially makes your Vanguard into a Marishika.
Exactly.
Because you obviously want this boosting your Vanguard. So it just creates a lot of plays in combination with some other key cards. I mean, really when it comes to pressure, it's, I mean... What's amazing is that you have access to these kind of pressure cards in your grade 1 and 2. So, of course, the Silver Thorns, they're really known to potentially get that nice early rush.
Exactly.
All you need is like if you got like Marishika, get like an Anna. I mean, you're gonna have a lot of like pressure to deal out to your opponent like turn 2, and that's really where this deck can be really, really scary.
Exactly.
And of course, you know, follow it up with your Break Ride, your Venus and such. I mean, this deck can be definitely very scary, and it's not that hard to set this up at all.
Exactly. As far as the number goes, I'm definitely giving it a solid 4, without a doubt.
Yeah, definitely, like I said, really for me, for pressure, I always look at how effective the deck can pressure, but also how consistently you can do it too. And this deck, I mean, like I said, this deck has like a lot of self-enablers. It doesn't really rely too much on setup and such, so it's very consistent to do, and it can be very scary when it goes off, and it's very impactful. And also too, another thing I forgot to mention with the pressure, even the finisher you can even do with your Lion and Venus, hitting some big numbers later. So once you clean up your opponent with you know, beat up your opponent a little bit with your on-hit abilities, maybe your Break Ride, you just use a Venus in combination with the Lion. You know, potentially hitting for 28 or maybe even 31k column to clean up. So that's another way to pressure late game. But overall for pressure, I agree with you. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
Awesome.
Very effective. Now, next on to, or moving on.
Something.
To next category. So moving on to the next category, we're going to talk about advantage. How well does this deck produce advantage for itself?
I think Venus can just say all that in itself. The fact that the limit break can just allow you to call 5 units very easily. I mean, in case you guys don't know what the effect of Venus is, it's you counterblast 2 Silver Thorns, you soul charge 2, and then you call as many cards out from the soul as possible as long as the combination of their grade doesn't exceed 6. So that means you can call like a Lion, a Zelma, an Anna, an Irina, and an Imile, and then use Zelma's skill to put Imile back into the soul and call a Dragon. That right there just called 5 cards out, so this thing gets +3.
Free cards.
So, and all thanks to just one card's effect.
Well, +3 for each card.
Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then technically 5.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's +15 right there.
But it's like all free.
Exactly, it's a free ability just for counterblasting 2 Silver Thorns. Now, utilize the setup, but still, it's just a big advantage that this deck can really do. And these are all 7k boosters with 9k attackers plus.
Yep. And so one thing I really like with the Venus is that it gives you just amazing like one skill recovery option, because you know nowadays it's very easy to control for a lot of decks to really control their opponent's boards, wipe out boards and such. So Venus is kind of like a help instant counter for that. Another thing I like with advantage is that especially with Marishika and Anna, it makes it so that you don't necessarily have to commit so much to get the early damage that you're going for early. Because Marishika, obviously, like I said, the best ride is Marishika. Because if Marishika hits, you get a free attacker out there. So that's like an extra attack you're essentially getting out to your opponent without committing that extra card to your field that can potentially maybe give you 1 less shield to use, or, you know, something in the front row your opponent can attack. So that's another way I think the deck can really build advantage that way. And like I say with pressure, if you're able to pressure your opponent well, forcing out unnecessary guards in situations where they would normally like take the hit or not guard, that can usually translate into you know, extra advantage that you're building yourself. So that's another way.
That's how Pale Moon usually is. It's one of those decks where it gains its advantage from its pressure. I mean, you don't see that many clans really utilize that, but Pale Moon is definitely like one of the front runners of that theory, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so basically just having a really stellar boss with like an instant just field replenish. I mean, you can even go back to classic Luquier. It actually does the same thing in a sense.
It actually the new cards in set 15 make original Luquier a little bit more stable, which is pretty interesting also. Because there were times where I didn't have Venus, so I had to actually break right into regular Luquier and still be able to use Lion and Zelma off and Melee to help set everything back into Soul. Really actually makes Luquier a lot more of a threat than regular or Venus.
And thus justifying its, what, $50 price tag?
40, 50, around there, yeah.
Oh, get out of here, Luquier, you charge too much. But also, too, like I said, with so in combination of, like I said, having just, well, 2 options, that's actually, for just instant recovery for full field replenishment, but also at the same time, being able to pressure and just get off extra attacks early on without committing extra cards is always a nice plus for yourself. So overall for advantage, I'm actually going to give this deck a 4 out of 5.
That's pretty good. I have to agree with you without a doubt. I mean, it doesn't have like the big stupid pressure like a lot of clans have, but the fact that Marishika and Anna and Venus can definitely get that full field, that full power field really quickly.
For free.
Combined with the Break Ride for a very minimal cost, just as long as you set it up correctly, it's definitely one of those decks where you can get a huge advantage. I'm giving it a 4.5.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely give it a perfect 5 if it had some way to like give extra free draw advantage.
Exactly.
But that would just be too much of a luxury for this deck, I feel. And then now, last but not least, for the last category, it's going to be, well, of course, like I always say, probably one of the most important categories, and it's what really makes or breaks a deck in terms of how competitive it can be, and that's consistency. How consistent is this deck, Warlickin?
Oh my god.
Here.
Okay. The consistency really is applied to two main cards in the deck, and that is Amelie and Irina. These cards help set up for the consistency because they just add cards into the soul. Now, Irina is just an excellent card to begin with because it's just a base grade 1 7k. But the fact that whenever she hits the field, you live the top 2 cards and add a card to the soul, it just makes it so much easier to work with. Combining with, and Amelie is actually really good too. It's probably one of the best starters that Pale Moon can get. I would use Innis Magician before then because I didn't like Ionella, I think is what her name was. I didn't really like her that much because you had to keep on to the top 2 thing and it just didn't work for me. So I just switched to Innis Magician. Amelie came out and I just love this card because what I usually do, I actually toolbox Amelie a lot of times. I just keep on using it with Zelma and things like that. That way I can actually filter out the non-triggers into the soul and increase probability as far as getting triggers up again. So that actually does help out a lot of consistency, not just as a soul, but as far as probabilities go when it comes to hitting triggers.
Another thing I like with this, you know, because basically with the previous starter, it kind of just did what both these did, which can be counterproductive because sometimes, well, you have that problem stacking triggers. But what's nice is, you know, again, going back to Marishika and Ana, it makes it, what's nice is, obviously, of course, the conception that we kind of, I guess, instilled on you guys is that, you know, use Marishika and Ana to constantly get extra attacks. That's not always the case, because sometimes maybe say your opponent damage extra trigger, you can't hit anything. Well, then you usually have some kind of options to fish for, such as going Irina and then just try and get some more soul setup. So there's usually always options for you, and that's another thing for, I think it's a good pinnacle for consistency. Another thing, too, I like is the combination with Irina and Emil.
Email, whatever you want to pronounce her name.
Amelie, whatever. So one thing, like I said, with Irina, I know a lot of people are back and forth with it because you could potentially stack triggers, but what's nice is you can keep, you know, using your skill freely, knowing that you have your starter that can shuffle that deck. It'll filter out the deck more and give you that reshuffle, and what's great is, obviously, you can bring it back out with Venus when you want to use it again in case you want to get a deck reshuffle. So it really helps with that, helps break that inconsistencies you have with maybe like stacking your triggers in the bottom and such. So that's another combination I like a lot for the deck.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. That combination alone, Venus with Emil, is just insane because there have been times where like I would have maybe 13 cards left in the deck and then I knew I had to stack like 6 of them as triggers. And then I would just call Amelia and be like, okay, let's do this again. Do it in, put the top 5. Oh look, there were maybe like 2 Pale Moons I could throw in there. So 13 becomes 11. And then I know I shoveled the other 6 triggers back in, so I know I'm at least going to be able to hit a trigger a lot easier than I did before.
Yeah, so I mean, with just these few, you know, cards, it made the deck more consistency. Like I said, just for the setups, it's really easy to set up now. You know, you didn't have to rely on drawing this one card you only run like 4 of and such, but now you have more options. And like I said, another thing too is you have more options to work with. So now you have another target user, Marishika, to open up more plays for you. So you're not stuck to just trying to stick on one play, and hopefully you don't get screwed over by like your opponent's damage checks and such.
19k column.
And of course you have an amazing target for Venus. So not only for the consistency of the deck, not only is it a lot easier and a lot more efficient to set up your soul, which is something the deck can struggle at times, but also on top of that, you have more options to go with your plays. So it makes this deck very versatile too. So it's very adaptive to the situation that they're in, and that's something I really like about this deck for post set 15.
It's definitely one of the best decks that came out of set 15. A lot of people were actually underestimating the deck when set 15 first came out because they were looking at more, what was it, Alfred and Rebirth. But now that like people are actually seeing Venus in action, people are starting to get scared of Venus, and they have a very good reason to. This deck can be very insane in the right hands. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely a lot of fun to play too. It definitely has a lot of great rewards. So when it comes to consistency, like I said, I'm actually going to give this deck a 5 out of 5. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. This is like one of the better decks this can do. Probably the best combo deck just for how consistent it is. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily rely too much on having this card with this card and such, and a lot of the cards are self-enabled. I have to agree with you, honestly. I mean, like, I'm a big combo fiend. Like, I love combo decks, and I even love this more than Grand Blue, and I love combo decks like Grand Blue. But the way Pale Moon is built now, it's like you said, it's probably the best combo deck out there. I'm giving this a 5 as well.
Yep. So hey, look, we agree on everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So guys, that is basically our analysis and such for Silver Thorns. I definitely find Silver Thorns really to jump up there in the competitive tiers and such. And you know, it's definitely a force to be reckoned with in the tournament scene. I think for post set 15.
I mean, the deck. I mean, of course, every deck can have its bad matchup. Like for example, Kagero, stuff like that. But even then, when it has big bad matchups against like Kagero and things that force retirement, the fact that it can still like refuel out of field so easily just with Venus alone, it really just begs to have attention for a good reason.
Yep, guys. So, as always, especially for any fellow Silver Thorn / Pale Moon players out there, feel free to leave a comment down below. Let us know, what do you guys think about Silver Thorns, or if you're playing Silver Thorns, how they're treating you and such. And I mean, feel free to give your own ratings and such. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Warlike36. He's a little busy right now, but I mean, I'm sure he has his reasons.
Switching jobs and new jobs. So.
Move your hand here.
Yeah,
they didn't see you. There you go.
Yeah. So I mean, like I literally haven't done videos in like 2 months, but that's because I literally just went from one job to the other, and I'm still trying to get a good pace of it. So
he'll be back. Don't worry.
I'll be back sooner or later. Don't know when, but
yeah. Stop asking me, guys, please.
Co-starring bullshit. So so for the record, please stop bugging Donald Paris and Zakuro and everyone about when I'm coming back. If you guys want to know when I'm coming back, then just ask me directly.
Please.
Seriously, just ask me directly. Please. I have a freaking Facebook foot. Yeah, just go on my Facebook fan page and ask me directly, and I'll answer anything.
Yeah. So yeah, before we leave, Warlike, any last impressions or shout outs or nothing to shout out. Subscribe to me.
Shout out. Yeah, subscribe to him. Subscribe to me.
Subscribe to everybody. All right, guys.
Facebook. Bye. Go Row. Go Pro.
Later.
Lolly circus motherfucker.
What do I say?
I don't know.
Whatever.
Think of a catchphrase.
Bye.